What is good, YouTube, man? Today I'm back with you guys, with the nation, for another video, man. And today, you can see by that title, you can see by the thumbnail, what we're going to be talking about, man. I'm going to be breaking down the Raiders post-draft defensive roster breakdown, man. We're going to get started with this, man. We got a lot of things to talk about, man. And really quick, shout out to your boy, Icy Nate, or also known as IC_Nate. He is the creator of today's thumbnail. You know, he always does us right by those thumbnails. But let's get into in today's video, man. So I'm gonna be talking about everybody, basically. I'm gonna be talking about Merrick. I'm gonna be talking about free safeties, strong safeties, corners, slot corners, will linebackers, Mike linebackers, or weak side linebackers, middle linebackers, and how else do you guys call them? Strong side linebackers. And then also, I'm going to be talking about our designated pass rushers or pass rush specialists, whatever you like to call them. I'm going to be talking about our DTs, our 3 techs, our nose techniques, man. And then our defensive ends. I'm going to be talking about it all, man. So let's get started, man. I'm going to start off with the free safeties, right? I feel like we added some good safety depth. I'm just going to break down the safeties in general, right? So on this roster, right, I think that there's obviously five safeties that can make this roster, right? This 53-man. And that's really what this video is kind of about, you know, guys who might be able to make the 53-man, guys that might not. And just so you're aware, man, this video might get a little bit longer than my normal typical, you know, classic 10 or 15-minute videos. This one might reach the 20-minute mark, because I'm going to be talking about a lot of players. So, let's start off with the safeties. 5 guys that I think should or probably will make this roster. Obviously, Jonathan Abram. Obviously, Trayvon Merrick, Carl Joseph, Tyree Gillespie, and Jeff Heath. I think that those are all guys that have the possibility to make this roster, right? You know, one of my favorite guys that we picked up, what was it, yesterday, was Tyree Gillespie, man. Tyree Gillespie has to be probably one of my favorite draft prospects in this draft that we picked up. I like it better than the Nate Hobbs. I like it better than the center that we got. You know, I like it all, man. I like this Tyree Gillespie pick a lot. And if you really break down and hear what Mike Mayock said, was that they didn't have the plan. They didn't go into yesterday's draft thinking about, okay, let's go out and get Tyree Gillespie. They said no, that wasn't the plan, but he just kept falling, and they said that he just felt like a player that had way too much value to continue following, and they felt that, you know what, let's trade up and let's go get Tyree Gillespie, right? So let's talk about it a bit. So we have Trayvon Merrick, Jeff Heath, and Carl Joseph, all as free safeties on this roster, right? Those guys are free safeties, right? Also, what I like is that Tyree Gillespie can play free safety. Carl Joseph can actually also play strong safety, also, as we all know. But I like this stuff a lot, man. I think going into the draft, we literally just had, or going into this offseason, we literally just had Jeff Heath and Dallin Levitt as our free safeties. Now we're going into this season with Tyree Gillespie, a guy who can play free safety, Carl Joseph, a guy who can play free safety, and we have our free safety of the future in Trayvon Merrick, right? So this is amazing. This is amazing. I feel like 110% Trayvon Merrick, Tyree Gillespie, and Carl Joseph and Jonathan Abram are going to be making that roster. I think the odd man out has to be Jeff Heath, not because of his play, but because of his cap situation, right? His cap situation is it's up there, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we only get 53 men to get onto this roster, and I think that Jeff Heath, although Mayock did say, you know, we think that Jeff Heath was really good last year, I think that Jeff Heath is going to be the odd man out, and I think he'll be the one to go. So just imagine us going into the season with Carl Joseph being in the rotation and Tyree Gillespie being in the rotation, and both of those guys can play strong safety and free safety. So I'm very confident where we're at in the safety position now. Obviously, Trayvon Merrick, one of the best things to happen to this franchise in a long time, right? But now, let's get into the corners. Not just the outside corners, but the slot corners, right? What I like is that not only do we have versatility in the safety department, but I feel like we have some versatility in the cornerback room as well. You know, let me just get started. Let me just name all the guys that I feel like should probably have the chance to fight to make that 53-man roster, and that's Trayvon Mullen, Isaiah Johnson, obviously, Rasul Douglas, obviously, Damon Arnett, obviously, and then you have Amik and Nate Hobbs, who are all probably trying to fight to make that 53-man roster. What I like the most is that Rasul Douglas and Isaiah Johnson, when we're just in our base 4-3 under, I mean, Rasul Douglas and Isaiah Johnson are going to be the guys that are rotating in with Damon Arnett, right? So let's say we go from a 4-3 under and then we switch into a dime package or a nickel package, right? Then you can bump in Damon Arnett into the slot, still have Trayvon Mullen as your outside corner, and then you can really just choose, okay, do I want Rasul Douglas out there right now, or do I want Isaiah Johnson out there right now? And you can really have those two rotating in and out a lot. And the reason why I still have Damon Arnett starting is because I feel like he's a quality player. You know, I really want him to get his chance, whether it's on the outside, whether it's in the slot. I want him to get his chance. And as for Nate Hobbs and Amik Robertson, those two guys, I feel like it's actually going to come down to those two guys. I don't think that Nevin Lawson is going to be on this roster. I mean, I'm not even going to talk about him, really. I really hope that he isn't on this roster, right? But I really feel like Nate Hobbs and Amik Robertson are going to be battling out for that roster spot, in my opinion. I don't know if we're going to go into the season with 6 corners. That would leave us with 10 DBs going into the season, right? I just don't know if we do it. I think it's possible. I think we could probably end up having that. Maybe we can have more, right? But I think that Nate Hobbs and Amik Robertson, I think that if they do make the roster, only one of them is really going to be contributing a lot to the defense, and the other one will be a main, like, special teams guy. You know, like Isaiah Johnson will have a good role, special teams as well as defense. He's going to get a lot of reps on defense. I feel like the same with Nate Hobbs and Amik Robertson. I feel like they both make the 53-man roster, but I feel like one's role on the defense is going to be much higher than the other one is just going to be mostly special teams, you know. I really like Nate Hobbs. I really hope that he gets his chance. I said this before. What I like the most about him is his confidence, man. His confidence really, 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 it puts himself above others. And just the way he carries himself, right? He said that he felt like his coach that he had before really prepared him for the life in the NFL, right? He said that he felt like he was well prepared. And he said that he's almost been, like, acting as if he's been in the NFL since college, right? So I feel like he's a smart guy. He'll do well, and I think he should have his chance this year. And let me talk a bit, because we all know about Damon Arnett, Trayvon Mullen, and Isaiah Johnson, but I want to talk a bit about Rasul Douglas, right? So I do believe that Rasul Douglas is making this roster. I believe he's going to make this 53-man pretty easily. And I know not every single person on this list, because I have about 33 people or 32 people on this list, but I really feel that Rasul Douglas, purely off of his tackling ability alone, is going to make this roster. He had a career high last year with 62 tackles, and not many corners, outside corners, are getting 62 tackles for their team, right? That's pretty tough to do. And also, he's a good scheme fit. He's just overall a good scheme fit in this scheme that Gus Bradley likes to run with this cover 3, 4-3 under, right? These are just good guys for the scheme. I do believe that mostly everybody there in that room will make that 53-man roster, but like I said, some will just have more roles on defense, or some will just have higher roles on special teams. Now, let's go into one of my favorite positions on this defense, and that's linebacker, right? So I have 6 total linebackers right here really quick. I have obviously Corey Littleton, Nick Witkowski, Divine Diablo, and Nicholas Morrow. But the 2 other guys are guys that we've had question marks on since last year, and that's Tanner Muse and Javin White. Let me talk a little bit about Divine Diablo. So shout out to Sanjeet. He did a video earlier today about Divine Diablo, and you know, it was real interesting. And I remember Sanjeet putting he hit a point on Divine Diablo, and he said that he felt that if he's really going to make the transition to will linebacker, which is what he'll play for the Raiders, is that he needs to be more instinctive, and he needs to shoot those gaps as a linebacker on run plays much quicker, right? And what I feel like he might have failed to mention was that he was playing safety in those roles. So he's the last line of defense. So he wasn't necessarily all in on having to hit those gaps, because he knew that if he hit the gap and he missed, he's the last line of defense, and the running back was going to go take it for 6, right? But with him now being able to play in the box all the time, and he'll get used to it, I feel like he will be able to be transitioning just fine to linebacker. I watched a bit of his Senior Bowl tape, and he was hitting those gaps very, very well. You look at a game that he played a lot inside the box against Alabama, and he had probably a career game against Alabama. Stuffed Najee Harris in the backfield, got a tackle for loss, and I believe it was Jalen Waddle. completely leveled Devontae Smith, and all these guys that I just mentioned are all first round picks. He's picked off guys like Trevor Lawrence. I really like Divine Diablo a lot. But let me talk about Javin White a bit. So Javin White, I put him in the linebacker category instead of the safety category, for the reason that I feel like he'll play more linebacker than safety. I do feel like he will play safety a good amount. I still believe that he'll be out there on the field with the safeties at times. Probably will spend a good amount of time with our new defensive back coach, Ron Miles. But Javin White is, at the end of the day, he's a very good pickup. He was a UDFA last year. And I feel like this year, he should be able to put his presence out there on special teams. And I think that what he'll do is that on downs where maybe Corey Littleton needs a breather, or, when Nicholas Morrow is out, or whenever, because it's football, right? Our linebackers are going to be taking a lot of punishment. I feel like Javin White, he'll be able to step in for a couple of those plays and play fine. I feel like that's his role on this defense. With what we just did, we still have Nicholas Morrow. We added the newly acquisition of Divine Diablo. I don't see Javin White in the near future getting the chance to completely excel into this team, right? I don't see him becoming a full-time starter, but that's fine. He can be a very, very good rotational value player to this defense, right? And will he have a lot of impact on special teams? Of course. Much like Tanner Muse will. I remember I was asked a couple weeks ago, what do I think that Tanner Muse will be doing this year? And I straight up just told him, I feel that Tanner Muse will take over the role of Kyle Wilbur. Kyle Wilbur is not here anymore. Kyle Wilbur was a special teams guru. He was our guy at special teams. And we saw last year, Kyle Wilbur had to step in a couple times and play linebacker. Like maybe a total of 10 or 15, maybe 20 times throughout the whole season. He only had about 20 snaps on that linebacking position, and I honestly feel like that's what Tanner Muse will do. Does it suck because Tanner Muse was a third-round pick and we got him to mainly be a special teams guy? Of course, it sucks. It hurts. But I think that Tanner Muse will make his presence felt on special teams, and I feel like that's still just as good. It's just as valuable, and I do believe that he'll step in at times how Kyle Wilbur had to step in and play linebacker for a couple plays, and I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be fine. But, I feel like this year, Corey Littleton is going to be able to go back into his own, but I do feel that Corey Littleton is going to have to make a bit of a transition as well. I think Corey Littleton played a lot of weak side linebacker or will linebacker last year, and I think that now we have a overload at that position. We have Divine Diablo, we have Nicholas Morrow, and we have Javin White that all play that position. So I think that Corey Littleton is going to have to go out and play that strong side linebacker, that Sam linebacker, and he'll be fine with it because at the end of the day, he's still just covering a small portion of the zone. If anything, we could end up seeing it kind of become like a hybrid, and Corey Littleton ends up kind of playing as that strong side linebacker, but ends up just shifting into the middle, and then we see Jonathan Abram covering the flats more than we see a guy covering the flats like Jonathan Abram. So it'll be interesting. We'll see about it when it happens, but at the end of the day, we don't really know, right? At the end of the day, we don't really know. So another guy that I want to talk about is we're going down to the defensive line now. I know this video might be getting a little bit long, but we're talking about the defensive line now. And real quick, before I get onto the long list of defensive tackles, I'm going to talk about our pass rush specialists, our designated pass rushers, whatever you guys like to call these guys. And I feel like those are our pass rush specialist number 1 is Max Crosby, and our pass rush specialist number 2 is Malcolm Kuntz. Malcolm Kuntz, shout out to Sanjeet. Sanjeet gave me the all-22 film to watch on Malcolm Kuntz, and I really, really like these two guys. And don't get me wrong, pass rush specialists and designated pass rushers, they do have a limited role, but their limited role isn't a bad role. It's a very needed role to have a successful defense. And I believe that Malcolm Kuntz and Max Crosby, in order for us to have a 40-plus sack season, they need to be very productive. And I think that they will be. I think that I can see Malcolm Kuntz getting anywhere from 6.5 to 7 sacks. I can see Max Crosby getting anywhere from 8.5 to 9.5 sacks. And these are all pass rush specialists. They're all designated pass rushing roles. I believe that these guys are going to come in on 3rd and 12, 2nd and 15, true passing situations, and really dominate the game. Can you just imagine when we have Malcolm Kuntz and Max Crosby, and then Cleveland Ferrell at defensive tackle, and then you have Yannick Ngakoue with what's his name? Either Solomon Thomas or David Irving out there. It's a very, very good defensive lineman room that we have right now. But now that I talked about the designated pass rushers, let's talk about our natural DNs. We only have about 3 natural kind of DNs, and that's Carl Nassib, Yannick Ngakoue, and Cleveland Ferrell, right? Cleveland Ferrell is one of my favorite players on this team. He's going to have a lot of big impact. For us to have a successful defense, he's going to have a huge year this year. And I believe he will, right? Do we expect Carl Nassib to still be on the roster? Who knows? Do we expect Jeff Heath to still be on the roster? Who knows? But it is what it is, right? It's a business. Does it suck? Of course. You never want to see guys that you've been supporting for about a year leave the team, but it happens, right? So, I know I kind of touched up kind of quickly on these 2 guys, but we all really know all of these guys. Let me talk about Malcolm Kuntz a bit. So, 3 things that I really saw about Malcolm Kuntz while watching his film is 1, his burst. I give it a good 8 out of 10. His burst is just a get off. His get off, he's very twitchy, and I like it. The only thing that I give it a knock is that his stand up rush looks a lot better than when his hand's in the dirt, right? And that kind of scares me a little bit, but it kind of doesn't, because Melvin Ingram was very good, and he never had his hand in the dirt for Gus Bradley's defense. And the only reason why I have Malcolm Kuntz as just a designated pass rusher is because, most like to say that he's an underrated run defender. I actually think that he's a bit, just not a great run defender, which is fine, because for his first 2 years in the NFL, he won't need to play the run too much. But let's get into this long list of defensive tackles, man. Let's get into this long list of defensive tackles. And really quick, I kind of forgot to mention on Malcolm Kuntz, my favorite trait about Malcolm Kuntz is his hands aggressiveness. His hands are extremely aggressive, and they're heavy hands, man. He knocks his offensive line's hands down, and it really completely moves the offensive lineman, gets them off balance. And since he's only 250 pounds, he can bend the edge really quick, and I really like Malcolm Kuntz. But let's get into the defensive tackles right now. And so I'm going to give you guys the defensive tackles. And starting off, number 1, this isn't in any kind of order, I'm not ranking them, is David Irving. David Irving is a 3 technique and a nose tackle for this defense. I do not see David Irving doing what he did with the Cowboys and going all the way out to defensive end. I don't see him playing the 7 or 6 technique. I think the furthest he can go out is probably the 5th technique. Now, let's go down to Solomon Thomas. Solomon Thomas is strictly a 3 technique in my opinion. I think that that's what we brought him in to solely be, is just a 3 technique, and that's fine. We need a good 3 technique, and that's what Solomon Thomas is. Is he productive? We won't know until the preseason, right? But next on the list is Quentin Jefferson from the Buffalo Bills, also from the Seattle Seahawks. He is a 3 technique and a nose technique in my opinion. He played a lot of 3 technique with the Seahawks, and he was kind of put out of position with the Bills. He played a lot of nose tackle with the Bills. Still produced a bit. He's a very solid run stopper, can get after the quarterback. Much better, in my opinion, than the next guy on this list, and that's Jonathan Hankins. Jonathan Hankins is our number 1 nose tackle on this defense. He is a straight up dominant run defender, and there's no problem with having a dominant run defender like Jonathan Hankins. Jonathan Hankins is a monster. Jonathan Hankins is one of my favorite guys on this defense, and for him to just be a nose technique and teams know that, he is a very productive one. And the next guy on this list, I have a lot to really talk about him. I like him a lot, and he's a rookie. He's our first undrafted free agent that we signed this year, and that was Darius Still. Darius Still's defensive tackle out of West Virginia has Gus Bradley's prints all over him. Gus Bradley loves his 3 techniques under 290 pounds and around 6'3", 6'2", 6'1". That's exactly what Darius Stills is. And really, I recommend you guys, for those of you who haven't watched Darius Stills' film, there's about a 12-minute film breakdown or not a film breakdown, but it's just 12 minutes of all his snaps against Baylor in 2020. And Baylor's a decent school, right? Darius Stills completely dominated that game. He missed about 3 sacks and had 2 sacks in that game. He has some ridiculous hand techniques for a defensive tackle. Not to put any labels on it, but the way that he uses his hands and how quick he is with his hands reminds me of Aaron Donald. Now, he isn't anywhere close to Aaron Donald at all. But when you look at how Aaron Donald plays, he plays a lot with his hands. And Darius Stills, when he gets off that snap, his hands do not stop moving at all. And I love it. He is very, very good. I see Darius Stills as a UDFA, an undrafted free agent, making this 53-man roster. Probably I would not be surprised if he had a more of a role over Solomon Thomas. Solomon Thomas isn't proven. And also, if you have the time, look at Darius Stills' Twitter after he got picked up by the Raiders. He was the definition of hyped and motivated. That had me, I was just ready for us to start tomorrow. It was amazing. But the next man on this list, Darius Stills, he's just a true 3 technique. That's all he is. Kendall Vickers, another guy. Another 3 technique. He should get his chance in the training camp to really prove himself. And Kendall Vickers, another 3 technique. And so is Darius Philon. Darius Philon or Philon, another 3 technique. Very similar build to Darius Stills. Another 6'1", 6'2", under 300 pound 3 technique. And I love the fact that we have these guys that are all kind of similar, but all veterans like Darius Philon. I would love for him to be able to teach Darius Stills some things. I honestly, out of every single defensive tackle that I mentioned, if you guys watch my videos, I was very high on David Irving. I still am, but I am very, very, very excited to see what Darius Stills can do for this Raiders defense, man. But it's a very long video today. It's about 23 minutes. I just touched up remotely on 30-ish players. We'll see, right? I might go live and talk about something like this, but on the offensive side of the ball. So if you guys want to see that, let me know in the comment section down below. But that'll be it for today's video, Raider Nation. Like, comment, and subscribe if you can. And I'm out. Peace.